at the edge of a cheerful little village called Sunbell Hollow, where roofs were painted like ripe berries and windows always seemed to smile, there lived a quiet excitement that drifted through the air like floating dust in sunlight. It was the kind of place where mornings hummed softly and evenings sighed with relief. People believed that stories liked to begin there because even the stones on the road felt warm with memory. On one golden afternoon, when the sky looked as if it had been brushed with honey and peach, a small but confident figure walked along the cobblestone path toward the village gates. He was a cat, but not an ordinary one. His fur shone a rich amber, smooth as autumn leaves, and his eyes sparkled like polished stars that had learned how to laugh. On his paws he wore shiny black boots that clicked proudly with every step, as if they were tapping out a brave little song. A wide-brimmed hat rested gently on his head, decorated with a single red feather that danced whenever the breeze whispered by. A light cape fluttered behind him, moving like it already knew it belonged to a hero. Those who would later speak of that day said they felt something change the moment he arrived, as if courage itself had padded quietly into town. The booted cat paused at the gate and looked around. He breathed in the scent of fresh bread, blooming flowers, and warm earth. His whiskers twitched with curiosity and delight. Sunbell Hollow felt safe, but also a little unsure, like a song waiting for the right note to begin. With a gentle smile, he stepped inside, his boots echoing softly between the houses. The streets curved playfully, as if they enjoyed wandering just as much as visitors did. Flower boxes spilled color onto every windowsill, and wind chimes sang shy greetings as the cat passed. He noticed how people peeked from behind doors, pretending not to stare, and how their expressions slowly softened. Something about the way he walked upright, calm, and kind made worries feel lighter. Children were the first to notice him properly. They stopped their games of rolling hoops and chalk-drawing crowns on the street. For a moment they stared, eyes wide and shining, and then laughter burst out like bubbles in a stream. A cat in boots was something special, after all. One brave child waved, fingers wiggling with excitement, and the cat tipped his hat politely. That small gesture spread through the square like warm sunlight. Smiles appeared. Shoulders relaxed. Even the wind seemed to sigh happily as it passed. A tiny girl with ribbons in her hair ran up and asked if the boots were heavy. The cat knelt down and tapped them gently. "They only feel heavy when you forget why you're wearing them," he said. The children nodded, even if they did not fully understand. Because his voice made everything sound wise and friendly at the same time, near the center of Sunbell Hollow stood a small bakery with a crooked chimney and a wooden sign shaped like a loaf of bread. Inside, a kind baker named Lumo paced back and forth, leaving little clouds of flour in the air. His oven had stopped working that morning, and without warm bread, the village supper would feel empty and dull. Bread was more than food in Sunbell Hollow. It was comfort, shared laughter, and the feeling of home. The booted cat noticed the worried look through the window and gently pushed the door open, making the bell above it ring with a friendly chime. Lumo nearly dropped his flour sack in surprise. "Oh. Hello there," he said, blinking twice as if he were still dreaming. The cat bowed deeply, his feather swaying. "Good afternoon," he said in a warm, playful voice. "I may be small, but I am very good at solving problems." Lumo chuckled, the tight knot in his chest loosening. "If you can help my oven, I'll believe in miracles," he said with a hopeful grin. The cat rolled up his sleeves, though no one was quite sure how a cat managed sleeves, and examined the oven carefully. He tapped here and peered there, listening closely, as if the oven itself were whispering secrets from long ago. He hummed a thoughtful tune, the kind that sounds like thinking feels, and gently turned a loose stone, brushed away soot, and gave a careful puff of air. With a friendly crackle and a low, happy rumble, the oven warmed back to life. Flames danced gently, just the way they were meant to. The room filled with heat and the comforting smell of rising bread. Lumo's eyes shone like lanterns. He laughed out loud, clapping his hands, and the sound felt lighter than it had all day. "You truly are something special," he said, pressing a small golden roll into the cat's paws. The cat accepted it with a thankful nod and stepped back into the street, where the story of his kindness was already hopping from doorstep to doorstep like a cheerful rumor. As the afternoon drifted on, the booted cat helped wherever he could. He untangled bright ribbons from the old stone fountain, freeing them so they could dance again in the water's spray. He reunited a lost duckling with its family, guiding it gently through the reeds while humming a soft lullaby. He helped an old clockmaker reset the town bell so it chimed on time again. And he listened patiently to a pair of arguing sparrows until they remembered they were friends. He even helped a shy mouse named Peary practice standing tall and speaking clearly. Peary's voice shook at first, but the cat nodded encouragingly every time she spoke. "Bravery grows when you give it room," he told her softly. By the end, Peary stood a little straighter, her eyes bright with pride. The cat never rushed and never boasted. Each small act seemed to add a soft glow to his eyes, as though his heart was lighting the way from the inside. The villagers began to feel it too, a gentle warmth spreading through the streets, reminding them of who they were when fear was not in charge. As the sun leaned lower, painting the village in shades of rose and gold, the air began to change. People gathered in little groups, voices lowering. Beyond the golden hills that cradled Sunbell Hollow, strange sounds had been heard at night. No one had seen anything frightening, but fear has a way of growing when it is left alone. Lanterns were lit earlier than usual, and doors were closed with extra care. The booted cat noticed the shift. He climbed onto the edge of the fountain, boots steady on the stone, and cleared his throat gently. The murmurs faded, and all eyes turned toward him. He looked around at the villagers, meeting each gaze with calm kindness rather than loud confidence. "Fear," he said softly, "is like a fog. It looks thick from far away, but it often fades when you walk forward together." His words were simple, but they settled into hearts like warm tea on a cool evening. He did not promise that everything would be easy or perfect. He simply reminded them that they were not alone, and that courage could be quiet, thoughtful, and kind. A gentle hush followed, then a few nods. Someone squeezed a neighbor's hand. The fear did not vanish completely, but it no longer felt so heavy later. As twilight wrapped the village in purple and blue, the cat wandered to the edge of town. Fireflies blinked awake, tiny lanterns floating through the air. The distant castles stood in silhouette against the rising moon, mysterious but not frightening. The cat felt a gentle pull in his chest, a feeling like a door slowly opening. He did not yet know what waited beyond the hills, but he sensed that his path was beginning to unfold. One careful step at a time, he returned to the village as stars sprinkled the sky. Luma waved from the bakery, now glowing with warmth and laughter. The smell of fresh bread drifted through the streets. Children whispered excitedly about the cat in boots who fixed ovens and helped ducklings and spoke brave words. The cat smiled, his tail swishing contentedly. That night, he rested on a rooftop, cape folded neatly beneath him. Below, Sunbell Hollow slept peacefully, lanterns glowing like tiny promises scattered across the dark. Somewhere an owl hooted softly. The wind carried the sounds of calm breathing and quiet dreams. The cat gazed at the moon and felt a deep, steady happiness. Today had been filled with small kindnesses, gentle courage, and warm connections. Tomorrow, perhaps, would bring something bigger, something that asked more of him. But for now, this was enough. As the moon climbed higher, the booted cat closed his eyes. In the hush of night, his boots rested, his hat tilted just so, and his heart beat steady and brave. Without knowing it, he had already planted the seeds of legend. In Sunbell Hollow, courage had arrived softly. Wearing boots and carrying hope, in the first chapter of an epic adventure, had truly begun. When morning returned to Sunbell Hollow, it did not arrive quietly. It spilled gently across rooftops, turning windows gold and waking the flowers one by one. Birds practiced new songs as if the day were an audience, and the village seemed to stretch and smile. The booted cat woke on the familiar rooftop just as the first ribbon of sunlight brushed the red feather on his hat. He sat up slowly, listening to the steady rhythm of his own heart. The gentle pull he had felt the night before was still there, calm but certain, like a soft paw guiding him forward. He stood, shook the sleep from his whiskers, and looked toward the rolling hills beyond the village. Mist curled around them like a secret waiting to be told. Something important lay past those hills. He knew, not because of fear or danger, but because of possibility. He adjusted his cape, took a deep breath, and climbed down into the waking streets. Sunbell Hollow was already alive. Lumo swept flour from his bakery steps, humming happily. Shopkeepers lifted their shutters, and children chased each other with half-eaten apples. Even the lanterns that had burned all night seemed to blink awake, shaking off the cool dew. When they noticed the cat walking toward the edge of the village, conversation slowed. Someone sensed this moment mattered, though no one knew exactly why. "I'll be going for a while," the cat said gently, his voice steady and warm. "But everything you need is already here. Don't forget that." No one tried to stop him. Instead, they gathered close. Lumo wrapped a bundle of fresh bread in soft cloth and placed it in the cat's paws. A group of villagers offered a scarf stitched from many different scraps, each square carrying a tiny memory, a story, or a hope. The cat tied it around his neck, touched deeply by the care woven into it. With a final wave, he set off toward the hills. The grass shimmered with morning dew, bending politely beneath his boots. The air smelled fresh, like the first page of a new story. Butterflies drifted past in slow, looping dances, and somewhere unseen, bells chimed softly, as if cheering him onward. As the cat walked, the world seemed to change color, growing richer and more magical with every step. Soon tall trees rose around him, their branches arching like welcoming arms. This was no ordinary forest. Leaves glowed faintly, and the ground sparkled with hidden light. Mushrooms dotted the path like tiny lanterns, and roots curled playfully, as if testing his balance. The booted cat moved carefully, but without fear, greeting the forest with a respectful nod. Every sound felt alive. A squirrel twitched in rhythm to a distant stream, and the wind whispered secrets he could almost understand. "Are you lost, shiny boots?" A cheerful voice called from behind a fern hopped around, fluffy creature with bright eyes and a crown of twigs. It bowed deeply and nearly toppled over. "I am not lost," the cat replied with a smile. "I am on my way." The creature clapped happily. "Then you are exactly where you should be." It introduced itself as Brimble and insisted on walking along. Brimble talked endlessly, pointing out berries that tasted like laughter, rocks that hummed when stepped on, and flowers that opened only when you looked at them with curiosity. The cat laughed, and the forest echoed the sound back warmly, as if every leaf and branch wanted to hear him. They met others as they traveled. A family of glowing fire moths lit the path when shadows grew long, floating gracefully like lanterns in midair. A slow, thoughtful turtle named Mellow shared stories of the castle beyond the forest, speaking of quiet halls, lonely towers, and a guardian who waited faithfully. A fox with silver-tipped ears named Neva showed them hidden streams where the water sang like a tiny harp. Each meeting reminded the cat that journeys were made not just of steps, but of connections. Even small friendships could make the path easier, braver, and lighter, at last. The trees thinned, and the castle appeared. It was tall but gentle, its towers curved like listening ears rather than pointed weapons. Vines hugged its stone walls, and flowers bloomed where no one had planted them. The place felt old, but not lonely, waiting, but not empty. A soft breeze carried the faint sound of whispers, not frightening but inviting, like a story that had been paused long ago, waiting for a reader to turn the page. The cat paused at the gate. He could feel a calm presence nearby, steady as the earth. Slowly the gate opened with a soft, welcoming creak, and from within stepped a tall figure wrapped in robes the color of moonlight. Their eyes were kind, holding both wisdom and quiet hope. "I am the keeper of this place," the guardian said softly. "Few come here with open hearts." The cat bowed deeply. "I did not come to claim or conquer," he said. "Only to listen and to help if I can." The guardian studied him for a long moment, then smiled. "Then you are welcome." Inside, the castle hummed softly with memories. Sunlight streamed through tall windows, casting dancing shapes across the polished floors. The guardian spoke of times when the castle had been filled with laughter, music, and feasts. Over the years, Fewer visitors had come, and the halls had grown quieter. But the guardian had waited patiently, keeping the heart of the castle alive. The cat listened carefully. He shared stories of Sunbell Hollow, of ovens fixed and ducklings reunited, of small kindnesses that made big differences. As he spoke, the walls seemed to warm. Light streamed brighter, flowers leaned closer, and even the old stone floor seemed to hum in appreciation, together. They walked through the quiet courtyard where a garden waited patiently. The cat knelt and planted seeds given to him by his forest friend's tiny promises of beauty and hope. He hummed softly, a tune that felt like sunshine and gentle rain at once. The soil shimmered under his paws, and little shoots appeared, pushing skyward with courage. Soon, colorful blossoms began to bloom, in shades that no one had named yet. "You remind this place how to breathe again," the guardian whispered. Smiling softly, "Places remember joy when someone believes they still can," the cat replied. His eyes glimmering as evening approached, the cat knew it was time to return. The guardian placed a gentle hand on his shoulder. "You have a brave heart," they said, "and a kind one. Remember, courage is not always loud. It is patient, quiet, and willing." The journey back felt lighter. The forest greeted him like an old friend. Brimble waved from a branch, Neva the fox flicked her tail in farewell, and Mellow nodded slowly, their eyes shining with approval. Fire moths danced around him one last time, lighting the path like tiny stars guiding the way. When Sunbell Hollow came into view, lanterns glowed warmly across the rooftops. The villagers gathered at the edge of the village. They did not need to ask questions or look for proof. They already knew something wonderful had happened. The cat brought no treasure, no trophies only, stories.com wisdom, and the kind of gentle confidence that settles like sunlight in a room. That night, the village shared bread and laughter. Children whispered excitedly about the cat in boots who had fixed ovens, guided lost ducklings, and planted hope in a distant castle. The villagers felt lighter, braver, as if a quiet magic had passed through the streets and into their hearts. The booted cat wandered through the village. One last time that evening, he stopped to watch a pair of children helping a small bird back into its nest. He smiled softly, remembering every smile, every act of courage, every moment that had brought life back to the castle garden and strengthened the hearts of Sunbell Hollow. As the night deepened, he returned to his rooftop. Stars twinkled like tiny lanterns in the sky, and the moon cast a gentle silver glow across the village. The scarf tied around his neck fluttered lightly in the breeze. He gazed at the hills where the castle lay, now safe and blooming, and felt a deep, steady happiness fill his heart. Destiny, he realized, was not about grand battles or loud triumphs. It was about choosing kindness, walking forward with courage, and helping others remember who they were meant to be. Sometimes the smallest steps and quietest deeds created the strongest magic. Somewhere beyond the hills, the castle garden glowed softly in the moonlight, a beacon of hope and joy. In Sunbell Hollow, the laughter of children, the warmth of bread, and the gentle words of neighbors carried courage through the streets. And wherever hearts needed reminding, a fearless booted cat would be ready, boots polished, feather bright, and cape flowing, walking forward with hope as he drifted into sleep, perched high above the sleeping village. The stars above twinkled brighter, as if winking at him. The wind carried whispers of gentle adventures yet to come. The world was full of stories waiting to be told, and the cat knew, in his heart, that he would meet each one with bravery, kindness, and a touch of magic. He curled his tail around himself, resting on the roof, listening to the soft night sounds, the rustle of leaves, the distant hoot of an owl, the quiet breathing of a village at peace. Sunbell Hollow slept soundly, hearts lighter and dreams warmer than ever before. The journey had changed him, but it had also reminded everyone, including the villagers, that courage does not always roar. Sometimes it arrives softly, wearing boots and carrying hope, ready to walk beside anyone who needs it. And with that thought, the booted cat closed his eyes, the moonlight glinting off his hat feather, and drifted into dreams of adventures yet to come. Adventures that would continue the story of courage, friendship, and the magic that lives in every kind heart.